Undisputed that Brady deserves 75% of the credit for the Brady-Belichick dynasty, while Bill deserves 25%. So, Shannon, is Brady proving now that he was more valuable than Belichick?
No, so we're basically ending the debate after 7 games. So that's it.
It's over.
So Coach Belichick said, let's just say for the sake of argument, down the road, Coach Belichick wins a Super Bowl, wins 2. So what, do we rekindle the debate?
Do you like your odds?
Yeah, I like my odds. Okay. I'm not betting against Coach Belichick, Skip. Look, if you really look at it, if we break this down, here's what Brady is as a starting quarterback this year. He's 22nd in completion percentage. He's 21st in yards per attempt. He's 16th in QBR. But he's 6th in pass attempts. Those are very pedestrian numbers, except the pass attempts. So let's not gloss over that fact, Skip. We're not saying, look, we understand what transcendent and historically great quarterbacks have meant. Not just to the Patriots, but to every organization. Because more times than not, Skip, you're not going to go from Joe Montana to Steve Young. You're not going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. More times than not, you go from Terry Bradshaw, and then you wait 2 decades before you get a Ben Roethlisberger. Or you wait, Dan Marino retires in 2000, and you got to wait until 2020 until you possibly got a Tua. That's what normally happens. So am I surprised that they're struggling this bad? Yes. But did I expect them to pick right up? And like Tom left, and they're going to be the same 12-4, 13-3 teams? No, I did not. But also, you got to look at what does he got? Tom Brady started 19 seasons in New England. 16 of those times, he had a top 10 defense. What does he have in Tampa right now, Skip, as we speak?
What? He's got himself, and he's going to be the MVP of the league.
No. That's not what I asked. Tom Brady started 19 seasons in New England. 16 of those 19 starting seasons, he had a top 10 defense. I want to ask you again, I'll rephrase it another way. What is it that Tom Brady has on the defensive side of the football in Tampa this year?
He chose Tampa because he knew Tampa had a better defense than Belichick ran out there over the last 8 games last year when they were below average.
So in other words, to make a long story short, in 20 seasons as a starting quarterback, Tom Brady is about to have another top 10 defense, which would be 17 in 20 years. Also, when people start to say, well, Mahomes is doing this, Mahomes is doing that, everybody says, well, look at those weapons. Not one time has anybody talked about Chris Godwin or Mike Evans or Gronk, or they got the 4th leading rusher in all of football. So we're just going to make it seem like that's all Tom Brady, that he does not have pieces around him. I'm not going to minimize what Tom Brady's doing. Tom Brady is playing better than I thought he would, earlier than I thought he would. That can't be disputed. But Skip, let's not just do this right now, because nobody said, I didn't see Mike Sando's piece in week 1 or week 2. I noticed this piece only came in the last 2 weeks. I also noticed that everybody is writing, since week 3, Tom Brady has this many touchdowns, this few interceptions. So this is what I'm going to do moving forward. Since the age of 42, Shannon Sharpe has been the best citizen in America. I'm going to disregard the previous 42 years. I'm only going to take the last decade. They've never done that before in the history of football. When you talk about a historically great quarterback, take the weeks that he played bad and only do the weeks that he did good. So moving forward, Skip Bayless, I don't want you to look about anything that happened before I was the age of 42. Since then, the last decade, Shannon Sharpe has been exemplary.
Really? I'm not sure about exemplary.
Yeah, you aren't sure about that.
I might put a microscope on exemplary. Okay, it is now my turn.
It's your turn.
The man is at it again. Right before your very eyes, Tom Brady is exposing Bill Belichick for what he is and always was. He was always a pretty good football coach, very good on defense, but overall just pretty good, because for 5 years he was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And help me out, what happened? Not much.
He did win a playoff game, though, Skip.
4 of those years, he missed the playoffs. He went a grand total of 36 wins and 44 losses, and after 5 years, got fired in Cleveland. He then went to New England, and the first year he went 5-11, and the second year started off 0-2. And I know for sure from one of the assistant coaches on his staff in 2001, that assistant coach was thinking about talking to a realtor and putting his home on the market in Foxborough because they doubted they would make it through that year before magic happened and the heavens opened and into their laps fell a 6th-round draft pick named Tom Brady, who took over for Drew Bledsoe off of an unfortunate fortunate. Yeah, thanks to Mo Lewis. And the rest is NFL history.
It is.
So when Tom Brady took over that year in 2001 in week 3, Bill Belichick's record as a head coach to that point was 41-57. That's 16 games under 500. I'm not saying that's exactly who he is now, but that gives you a pretty good idea of what Tom Brady did for him. Because I always tell you, there is one man in sports I do not bet against. And now I told you going into this year, I definitely am not betting against a Tom Brady who's got his mad on for Bill Belichick, who is driven to prove Bill Belichick wrong. And is he ever off to the races? Because he is not only proving that he was by far more valuable than Bill Belichick through those 20 years in New England. I always put 75% on it. I'm creeping up toward 80% now. If you look at what happened, the dynasty was created and sustained in the largest part by Tom Brady, who slowly but surely, after taking over as a very young player, became the leader, the face of that franchise. I think he became the greatest leader in the history of sports because he had to become the buffer in that locker room for really about 18 years between the players and a Coach Belichick who led the league in negativity toward players. I believe he was a coach Shannon Sharpe would not have lasted long under because the verbal abuse was over the edge. And the film study abuse, the group film sessions were completely over the line. But they always had Tom Brady in the locker room to say, hey, guys, it's okay. That's just the way he is, but we're going to be okay. We're going to win, basically, in spite of the head coach.
But Skip, as a leader, as a quarterback, that's half of his job. That's being proved out in Dallas. Okay. Everybody thinks it's all with Dak's production on the field.
Okay.
You don't realize off the field what role they play.
Okay, I agree with that. But the point is that he even took Belichick off the hook for dozens of personnel blunders, of draft misses, of free agent swings and misses. It just didn't matter. You could bring in any old cog on defense, and he is a very good defensive football coach. But you could bring in any old cog on offense, too, and you could put just a bunch of guys out at receiver, and Brady would figure out how to make it work. Because Tom Brady, with a bunch of Edelmans and Amendolas and Hogans, won 6 Super Bowls with 6 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter or overtime. That is outrageously off-the-charts great. And he also should have won a 7th Super Bowl in the first Eli Super Bowl because he did what he always does. He drove him down 75 yards in 12 plays, hit Randy Moss for what looked like it was going to be the game-winning touchdown with 2 minutes remaining, and then Belichick's defense spit the bit again. And they get a pass for this. Belichick got a pass because Eli Manning took the Giants 83 yards in 12 plays and hit Plaxico with the game-winning touchdown. Okay, that wasn't Brady's fault. Again, you say, well, they only scored 14 points. Well, at least they scored enough that I thought they were going to win the football game. So I think Belichick cost him a 7th and then cost him an 8th for sure because he allowed, and we're going to talk about Nick Foles here in a few minutes, Bill Belichick allowed Nick Foles to hang 41 on his defense in a Super Bowl game.
But Skip, in the games that you say they lost, what about the games that they won that they could have lost? They could have lost that first one. They could have lost to Carolina. They could have lost to Seattle. So you just can't say, okay, yeah, he's 6-3 and he could have been 8-1. He also could have been 3-5. He could have easily been 4-5. So you just can't say take the losses and say they should be wins without saying the wins could have been losses.
Was he flawless in playing his part to set up the game-winning field goals in every situation we just talked about? Yes.
Skip, he was flawless in that situation, but he wasn't flawless up until those situations, in some of those situations.
In the fourth quarter against the Legion of Boom, he threw for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns to bring them from 24-14 down to the lead. And then I'll give you this. It's debatable about the last decision, the play called, but Russell Wilson threw a really good pass that hit Lockett, I thought, about right there, and it was the greatest break on a football by a cornerback I have ever seen.
Well, we see what Russell does in that stadium,
okay.
So it's not very good.
Well, maybe that's the case. But there's stats in the Athletic article you referred to by Mike Sando about Josh McDaniels. If you look at his record with Tom Brady and without Tom Brady, it's just a joke what happened, because they are outrageously good with Tom Brady. They're averaging, with Josh McDaniels, with Brady, they averaged more points dating back to 2005 than any other team in the league, 27 points a game. And then without Tom Brady, when he's been a head coach other places, he's averaged 18 points a game. So, again, did Tom Brady get Josh McDaniels some jobs that he didn't deserve? Yeah.
He got a lot of people jobs.
Okay, yep.
He got Charlie Weiss the job. He got Bill O'Brien the job.
He did.
Those defensive coordinators, Skip, they got jobs because of him.
All because of Tom Brady. And Shannon, what he is doing, and I'll give you this, just so far in Tampa, but that's the point. We're only 7 games in, and he's already recreating the Patriot way in Tampa.
Yes.
All of a sudden, they're playing the cleanest football in the league after that debacle on that Thursday night in Chicago, which they actually needed to get through. They lost 20-19.
Right.
And Brady got dinged at the end of the game, and you were all over ridiculing him about, where am I? And then what happened? Aaron Rodgers happened. And then what happened? At Raiders happened. And they're clean games with high touchdowns. He's now 15-1, 15 touchdowns to 1 interception over his last 5 games. And you can just see him recreating Patriots South in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And you see the numbers that he's putting up. They lead the league in point differential. That's outrageously good, because I remind you, they had no preseason games. They had to do mostly virtual OTAs. He had a brand new offense with a brand new coaching staff and brand new receivers who he barely knew. And look at him now. And they've been all beat to hell in their receiving core, like a lot of teams have, but he didn't have Chris Godwin for 3 games, and Mike Evans still doesn't look right. And Pro Football Focus concludes that he should be, Tom Brady, the MVP frontrunner. You threw those numbers at me, I'll throw these back at you. Do you realize that Tom Brady so far, in what they call big-time throws, he has 24 of those, including, I think, 3 more on Sunday at Raiders, to bring him to 24. That's first in the NFL. God, that's good. How about turnover-worthy plays by Tom Brady? He has only 3 all year, which is tied for first in the NFL. They rate him, in just their overall quarterback rating, 3rd best in the league right now. Is that good?
That's good. But he's rated 3rd, though. Their
conclusion is there's no reason he shouldn't be considered a front runner for the 2020 NFL MVP.
Well, Skip,
wow.
We mentioned that yesterday. I believe he's in there. Russ opened the door and let a lot of other people, because Russ had the door closed. But he opened the door, and he allowed Brady to walk in. He allowed Rodgers to walk in. Mahomes has walked back in. I think, Ben was at the door knocking, and then he realized no one was home, because those 3 interceptions really hurt. But, yes, he's going to be in the end, and he was always going to be in the end because of Tampa's record, considering what they were last year, the previous year, and what they were this year. Just like Peyton Manning, when he got there, although they won the division, they were 8-8. Skip, 8-8 is one thing, winning division. You go 8-8 to 13-3, what Peyton did his first year, obviously. But the things, if you go back and look at it, you look at the teams that have won multiple MVPs in a short period of time. You look at the Steelers, they won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. What did they have? Lights out, outstanding defense. You look at your Cowboys. Although the defense don't get credit, Skip, because they get big names on offense, the Irvins, the Smith, the Aikmans, you know their defenses were unbelievable.
Starting with Charles Haley. Yep.
You look at the 49ers, Skip. The 49ers defense don't get any credit. Skip, they were unbelievable in the 80s.
Totally agree.
So in what Tom had in New England, although, Skip, they're not any big name. They didn't have an Aaron Donald or LT, or they didn't have anything like that. He had a lot of pieces that he could plug, and they played extremely well together.
Okay, so the point is, what this man is doing at 43 is so extraordinary because he's doing it so quickly. And here comes Antonio Brown. We're going to talk about him in just a few minutes. And it's now to the point that Mike Sando concludes in the piece that you brought up. Last line is, the Patriots could be just like a lot of other teams, scrapping it out from week to week, not quite sure what the future holds, but increasingly sure it won't come close to approximating the past.
No.
That's where we are right now with New England. And you can say it's too early to write them completely off, but you're seeing them get exposed as sort of just another team with just another pretty good coach who's trying from week to week to figure it out. And this piece points out that with Cam, he got off to a sensational start, and then the league said, as you know this league will do, timeout. Let's just load up that box because we still don't believe he can beat us with his arm consistently. Let's take the run completely away from him and from his team.
Right.
And then let's see what happens.
Because you don't have anybody that can win one-on-one consistently.
Okay. And now what's happening with Cam, do you realize over his last 10 games, he's 4 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. That dates back to obviously the Carolina when he was all beat to hell. But the point is, people are saying you can't beat us with your arm consistently. Right. He almost beat Seattle with his arm.
Correct.
But can you do it every game? Well, obviously the last couple, it could be a COVID reason.
Right.
I give you some pass for that one. But in the end, I just think the script has been flipped because now a lot of these anonymous quotes in the Sando piece are saying, hey, it actually comes down to Tom Brady could erase all those shortcomings and all those in-game problems. And there's no doubt that he could.
There's no question that a great quarterback is the greatest deodorant for anything that transpires on the team. He can cover up lack of talent on the offense. He can make amends and make atonement for bad defenses. There's no question about that. That's always been the case. And Tom Brady might be the greatest deodorant. But, Skip, as you mentioned, there's a culture. If you look at the Miami Heat, they don't have a D. Wade. They don't have a LeBron James, but they have a culture that's been established. Okay? LeBron James took a lot of that culture that he learned and brought it other places. You look at when he went back to Cleveland, you look at what he's done in L.A. That's a culture thing. So what Tom Brady did is that he took what he learned in those 20 years in New England, and he brought that because he's the greatest guy to be able. I'm sure there are other guys, Skip, that played in that culture, that tried to go places, but they don't have that.
I agree.
So when you have that and you can go somewhere, he can set up shop anywhere and it'll work.
And you say, what's he have now? Top 5 defense, maybe a top 1 defense?
I think they're 8th in points and like 5th in yards. Or something like that.
Okay, but I had to sell you when Tom Brady shocked the NFL world by picking the Buccaneers. I had to sell you on Todd Bowles' defense because I said, Shannon, look at what happened the last 4 or 5 games of last year when they went 7-9. They were a turnover machine because Jameis was a turnover machine. Yes. And yet I said that defense has front 7 talent.
Yes.
And Todd Bowles is, for me, top 3 coordinator, defensive coordinator. He's not the greatest head coach, hasn't proven to be. Right. But when he's calling defense,
he keep calling defense like that, he gonna get another chance to be a head coach.
Well, you could argue, but you could also argue this is his calling. This is what he does greatest. And all of a sudden, because Brady's there, everybody on that field is saying, we got the GOAT. We got this. And the defense is playing at a higher level, and obviously the offense is. And all I know is that through 7 games last year, they had 17 turnovers. Now they have only 7. They are +5 in turnovers now. They were -5 a year ago at this point.
That's the huge difference.
That's it.
And the defense is not playing as much, so they're fresher, and they're getting after the quarterback. And when it's all said and done, Skip, look, let's not minimize Tom. Give Tom his credit. Tom has played well. But I do believe the defense giving him, because there are a lot of times, Skip, they're 3 and out. They're getting you up off the field. And so Tom is in a rhythm. It allows Tom to stay in a rhythm. And the one thing that you try to do when you're playing a guy like Tom, or you're playing a Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, you want to keep their butt on the sideline as much as possible, Skip. You don't want to get – they score a touchdown. Okay, you come on the field and you go 3 and out, or you go 5 and out. And that guy's right back on the field. Well, you just let him get a rhythm. You just let him complete 8 passes and got right down the field. And that's what the mistake that the Raiders made. They let him get a rhythm, and guess what? He was right back on the field again, and boom, he blew the game wide open.
And he's saying to Belichick, hey, look what I can do when I have a little bit of talent around me.
Yeah, he
might, didn't have.
He might be doing a little kid. He might be got his tongue out at Coach Belichick behind.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Final quote from the Sando piece, again, anonymous from an evaluator. An NFL executive says, a lot of us were still thinking, oh, Bill's a genius and he's on top of everything. He's going to out-strategize you and outwork you and no days off. And I think that's just not how it works.
No.
Starts with the quarterback, especially if he's the greatest leader ever, and you lose that, you've lost just about everything.
Well, Skip, the thing is that you always felt if you play defensive, we can hold them to, especially now, if you could hold a team to, say, 20 points, and you had Tom, you felt that we're going to get 27, we're going to get 30, we're going to win. Now, when you have those pieces on defense, you got to hold somebody to 14. The likelihood of you holding somebody to 14 week in and week out, they don't allow you to play defense like that, Skip, because you can't get that physical anymore. Now, unless you got some just bad quarterbacks, and there are a few of those, but when you're dealing with a guy like he and Rodgers and Mahomes, Skip, what's the likelihood you think you're going to hold those teams to 17 and win games?
So I have now changed my percentage. I say Tom was worth 80%, and Bill, I'll give 20%.
You know what?
80-20.
First of all, and guess what? By the end of the show, it's going to be 90-10 for you. And by the end of the year, it might be 95-5 to you.
Shannon, are your numbers also shifting a little bit?
Nope.
Little, just a tad?
I just believe in Coach Belichick.
I could hear a little difference.
But the days of him just taking popsicle sticks and building the Taj Mahal, those days are over. He's going to need some bricks. He's going to need a good solid foundation. He's going to need some better players in order to get back to where he wants to be.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.